I'm really excited. We're finally jumping into this. So it's good to have you on, Sandra. I've been looking forward to this and having you as my first guest. And what my idea is for this is I wanted to call it the Lifemaxx Podcast because, um, it's kind of therapy centric. We're all therapists. And
Mhm.
what we normally do on the day to day is help clients kind of max out their life, right? And just improve their life in different ways, in so many different ways. And I'm lucky to have this like really diverse team. We all come from different corners of the world and backgrounds and cultures. And I think everybody has something different to bring to the table. And I think the main thing I wanted to get out of this was just kind of like have the audience get to know you and what you're about and just kind of like your approach to self-improvement in general. And then if you have anything for the listener to walk away with, we could talk about that toward the end. But yeah, we'll start by just introduce yourself. Let us know, who you are, where you come from, what brought you to the States. That's always an interesting story to hear.
Yeah. Hi, Aaron.
Hello.
And yeah, hi, all the listeners. So, my name is Sandra, and I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor in California. And I've been in this US, I think this year will be my 10th year actually,
Wow.
anniversary. So,
Mhm.
can't believe time flies. And what brought me to the state really was the old American dream.
Mhm.
Like I watched a lot of, American TV shows of how coming to US would be.
Mhm.
And I had this like bubbles. Of course, once I came to this land, the bubble has popped.
Oh, okay. So, hey, tell me a little bit about that. Actually, I'm really curious because I'm always curious as to what parts of the U.S. kind of lived up to your expectations, and then what didn't. The thing that I'm really curious about is obviously they see, like you said, right? You watch shows and movies and stuff, and I'm wondering like how accurately we're portrayed here to others because it brings a lot of people in. It works, right? The advertising is good, but like, tell me more about that.
The first date I went was because my school was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mm.
So at that time, I would say primarily the population was very dominantly Caucasian.
Mhm.
I was only one of the international student in my program.
Mhm.
So honestly, in my mind, when I watched the American TV show, I actually always thought it's like, oh, it's this beautiful story that everybody come from different cultures and
Mhm.
work together, talk together, like.
Mm. Mhm.
But I didn't realize that maybe it's more featured in California. So
Sure.
to to answer your question, I would say California definitely live up to like that very similar of my original American dream.
Mhm.
I didn't really expect or see the part of like the racism that I experienced
Mm.
in
Mhm.
the East Coast, and
Yeah.
I would say even a lot of people that I know in California that actually didn't experience what I experienced,
Mhm.
and or that it can seem very different. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what was, I guess, on that note, what was the biggest culture shock for you when you got here?
The biggest cultural shock was that I thought, America is like considered the country that everybody want to come to, and
Mhm.
I kind of had this misconception that everybody would be very international,
Mhm.
like.
Mhm.
But a big cultural shock to me was that a lot of my peers at that time that have never heard of Taiwan and that have actually a lot of them never had had traveled to outside of country
Mhm.
at all, and like that was a shock to me because and then they'll ask me, have I ever had pizza before,
Mhm.
do we have Starbucks in Taiwan? And I was like, it was a shock to me because I thought they will already know, maybe they don't know about Taiwan, but then they will already know more about other countries.
Mhm.
But their life was actually more secluded than I thought.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. So the ignorance of Americans, that's what kind of stood out to you. It makes sense. I'm not well traveled either, so I learn stuff all the time from you guys. And then I guess this is maybe the same type of question. But what's a misconception about? Actually, no. What's a misconception about Taiwan that Americans in the U.S. have? It that you know of anyway. The ones I knew like Taiwan existed.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people don't even think Taiwan exists. They thought they mix up Taiwan and Thailand,
Oh, really?
and yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and they thought because there's this political situation between China and Taiwan, right? So that they feel like Taiwan is part of, China, and then a lot of people, they when they see me then hear Taiwan, they'll start, doing kung fu and
Oh, wow.
and yeah, in front of me they say, "Oh, you know this, right?" And I'm like, okay, but like, I don't even really watch that much kung fu
Uh-huh.
video growing up. That's not even my favorite, stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they have a misconception of like Asian are they all look the same,
Yeah.
or like they're not very aware of like what is Taiwan. So I
Hmm.
would say that's the misconception, is they don't even know what is Taiwan.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. And then if there was anything you'd want people to know, right, as far as kind of what you're talking about with just the misconceptions here, like what would you like if the listener was one of those people, right? What would you want them to know about, if anything, about Taiwan?
Yeah, in general, like right now, I'm sure a lot of people already know about Taiwan. Like, for the past 10 years, a lot of things had changed. But if I could, want people to know about, it's a beautiful island that
Hmm.
we have a lot of great food, and we have a lot of like nice people that,
Hmm.
that is, we're very diverse right now. A lot
Mm.
of foreigners actually came and
Okay.
stay over as Taiwanese, new immigrants too.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we are very welcoming and
Hmm.
a very open island country, I would say.
Great. Okay. And then I'm curious, right? Because we're in the mental health field here, right? And so,
Mhm.
do mental health issues there vary from ones you see here? And this is kind of getting toward your topic, right? I love your topic, by the way, for today.
Yeah, I would say it can be different. Like
Mm,
what mental health is, I would say for the past 10 years, definitely has a lot has changed.
mm.
US definitely, I would say Americans have more access or more open
Okay.
to like mental health
Hmm.
services, but I think Taiwan really didn't have that openness until recent years. Even my own parents, like,
Hmm.
I'm a therapist, but then they weren't really open until recently.
Mm,
um and I would say the issue or the treatment um, can feel very different. Like how I work with Taiwanese people versus how I work with American, that itself can already be different.
hmm. Okay. And then that's kind of getting onto the topic. Like, I love your topic, by the way. It's great. I wouldn't have even thought of that. So that's a bit of a cultural piece, right? You want to talk a little bit about like your topic you wanted to talk about today?
So the topic I wanna talk about is something that really came up really often in my session, probably in your sessions too, Aaron. Like which is about productivity, because
Hmm.
a lot of my clients that come in, they would always hear this type of inner critique is that how like I'm not productive today. Like last week I only exercised once, or I didn't finish this work project. Like I don't like this. I want to be more productive. How can I be more productive?
Hmm.
And if anything, I would say not just immigrants or Taiwanese people, a lot of my clients from different cultures
Hmm.
actually do experience this type of struggles.
Hmm.
And tied to the topic that I want to bring about is kind of to really discuss this with you, Aaron, and kind of share with our listener that productivity is something maybe rooted in capitalism, or like
Yeah.
there's a long history
Sure.
behind it.
Hmm.
Like there was a need for survival, or we need to produce more,
Uh-huh.
but then now we are at a different time.
Hmm.
Like what are we really trying to pursue here in terms of productivity?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying, because it's at the end of the day, right? It's about the flow of liquidity, the flow of money. That's what keeps kind of a strong capitalistic society going, right? Is like the faster the money flows, the better, I guess, for all of us, right? In a way. But where is the line to that, right? As far as individually, and just kind of the way a lot of companies here, and I'm sure maybe it's the same over there, where a lot of the way a lot of companies are designed, and like I've worked for Walmart, like I worked, when I was young, when I was a kid, so I know like the exploited, and actually no, in our field there's so many exploitative practices out there where they just like give you 30, they give the associates like 35 clients and they pay them like nothing. It's disgusting, it's gross, but there's a lot of that out there. And so it's just it's everywhere you look. So yeah, where is that line, where is that enough, and we kind of get imprinted with that in certain ways, as far as production equals good, and we don't set a line for ourselves or boundary for ourselves, and that kind of goes maybe some towards some shame, toxic shame, stuff that we come up with. Performance, right? When is performance enough? I think that's also a thing of lack of boundaries within oneself.
Yeah, and that's actually, you brought a really good point, because the reason why this topic really interests me so much is actually because I think I have shared this experience with you privately, that one of my previous companies, that when I worked there, I had to see 50 clients
Oh my goodness.
a week. It's not all therapy session,
Yeah.
but plus assessment, that's still a lot,
Oh,
right?
that's double full time at some places. That's like double.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it really hit my limit. And then, but what was really crazy to think about is I still feel like I wasn't enough.
Mm,
Like
mm,
and when I really look back, and it was this, story I hold about productivity
mhm,
that I carry with me from Taiwan, is that you have to keep working. You're never enough. You have to keep doing more.
mhm,
Working is how you can contribute to a society,
mhm.
that how you can make your parents proud, and how you how you define your worth.
Yeah.
And I will say, for a long time, that is how I have seen myself, and I also see my clients doing that. I don't know if that's your experience too.
As far as which part exactly, just the kind of my
Yeah,
value is based on my work capacity, or that part of it.
yeah. Well, with your clients, do you see that?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it definitely, especially, and I, not to like get into this, this or that, but a lot of times with male clients, male, like if they're in that traditional role of provider, and maybe that's pretty much all they've known, and that's all they've pretty much based their value of themselves on, and just how well I provide. That's I've seen that a lot. Obviously, it goes both ways. Seen it on both sides, but that's kind of where I see it a lot more in my experience, anyway. But yeah, a lot of people base their value on how much money they make or what they own, right? Or just a lot of flash, if you will, flash without not a lot of anything underneath that, if that makes sense. Material, right?
Yeah. And I think on top of material stuff, what I have been seeing as a trend, maybe in the therapist community, online, or like in my client, what I'll see is that, okay, they're starting to build this awareness that, yeah, material things are not the only thing.
Mhm.
So let me try to explore other things.
Yeah.
But then that type of same mindset kind of got transferred into, how many books do I read? I need to exercise every single day.
Mm.
I do the self-care exercise my therapist asks me to do every single day. If
Hmm.
I don't, I'm not productive. Or
Hmm.
for therapist community, how many trainings have I done, or certifications? And personally, I also kind of carry that anxiety sometimes still,
Hmm.
because I'm like, oh, today I saw clients, but I didn't do training or try to make sure I'm, making myself a better therapist,
Yeah.
then I'm not productive. Like
Hmm.
that type of thought will kind of come up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like a an ongoing, like, maybe like perfectionism, if you will, right? Of like,
Yeah.
this is my time that I have. How am I going to use it as most productively as possible? And then if you don't, that anxiety starts kind of like taking over, right? And kind of scrambling maybe to just use it productively whatever time you have. So how do you combat that though, right? Because that's a tough one to break. That's kind of, and not to imply that this is not a problem, but there are good things that come out of productivity, right? Obviously, there's a lot of good things that come out of it. So that alone, I could see that being a reason for something like this to be hard to break. Like if you're earning a lot of money because you're so productive, and you start like getting this lifestyle because of it, hard to not do, hard to go backwards.
Yeah. I think that's a very tough balance to find. So, and when you were saying, I was just really thinking in my mind about earlier you mentioning shame.
Mhm,
I believe there's healthy shame and
mhm.
toxic shame.
Okay.
Like, if we can be aware or like be curious about like what is behind this productivity, like what I did was really when I experienced a burnout and after I was really trying to examine like what had gone wrong. Like
Mhm,
if anything, though that productivity does bring me recognition and a lot of experience, like you said, like it really benefited me and
mhm,
helped me build a solid foundation.
mhm.
But it's starting to drain me.
Yeah.
So I think that's when I started. When you ask how can we combat that, maybe I will say to starting to question or challenge, like, is this productivity, the expectation or standard behind it, is it still supporting me
Mm.
to live the life I want
Yeah.
or not? But then you start to question this lifestyle. Okay, maintain a certain lifestyle that is important. Maybe even expand that. Why is this lifestyle is important or achievement, then that really required to for us to really quiet our mind down to reflect on what is the meaning
Yeah.
of us trying to do all of this or live a certain things
Uh-huh.
and what is important for us.
Yeah. So you maybe take like a existential type approach to it and looking at the meaning of
Yes.
it. Yeah. And do you talk about like values and stuff like that? Do you get into the value talk or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I always do that with clients about like, like what is I talk about like what is the emotional needs that you have,
Hmm.
maybe wanting acceptance, recognition, and I connect with value. The value what they really want is maybe balance
Hmm.
or connection, community,
Yeah.
responsibility. Then we talk about those values that come from them personally and their family values. How can we? I think a lot of them will fear. And me personally is that when we don't hit a certain productivity, we feel we fail. We are not honoring that family values.
Hmm.
So then what I really do is that let's talk about ways can we honor the value
Hmm.
that you have, honor that relationship while taking care of yourself and be productive in a way that does not harm us.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. You mentioned something earlier too that I was curious about. So you mentioned that there's like obviously toxic shame and then healthy shame. Can you dive a little more into that?
Yeah. So I think that really just part of my mind because I feel like we always feel like shame is something that's very bad.
Hmm.
But I think recently, actually, you know what, recently I started to feel like maybe shame is something, it's a human experience that we all will feel.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when toxic shame come from when we don't want to face it, or when we feel like it shouldn't exist, or when we really maybe limiting our position
Hmm.
into maybe victim or a perpetrator,
Hmm.
or something that whether someone doing harm or receiving harm, you know, and then we are kind of being trapped in one story,
Yeah.
then I would feel like that could be a toxic shame
Yeah.
because life has no other possibilities or
Hmm.
hope. But I
Hmm.
feel a healthy shame is to acknowledge that yeah, I do feel shameful or embarrassed, or that I do something that I'm not very proud of. And that's okay. That's part of the human experience because we
Yeah.
are flawed.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, you're saying that the function of the shame is kind of what makes it, because shame is shame, right? But then if it's a shame you're stuck in and it's kind of giving you this how do you say, tunnel vision, that's like more toxic. Whereas if it's a shame that serves a function of helping you to do better, that's the function. Yeah, I've been talking lately with my clients about how emotions are neutral. All of them are neutral in that they're just messengers. They're telling us something. We should look at what they're telling us, not so much trying to shoot the messenger. So yeah, I've been taking a similar approach as well. And how
Yeah.
else do you approach this with clients, as far as just this perfectionism and this need to be as productive as humanly possible?
Yeah, I think first of all, really need to acknowledge like what I have been working on, I have been upholding, which is that this professionalism and
Mhm.
like this standard of productivity. I wouldn't say it's easy because it's something that they carry their whole life.
Oh yeah.
It depends on their age,
Mhm.
right? Some client coming when they're 60, that this is what they believe their whole life. And
Yeah. It's our identity,
so
right?
yeah. So it's like if I deny this way of productivity, then you're saying my whole life is wrong.
Hmm.
So how I would usually approach is that to really honor that self that follows this productivity, this template. You it's not all bad. Yes, it has caused some maybe draining or caused some illness,
Hmm.
or there's some issue and you want to change. And I would say that sometimes there will be guilt when you realize that something is wrong. I don't want to live like this, but I don't know how to.
Hmm.
You know how when our client coming in that contemplation
Yeah.
stage, I feel like they're in that in between places, is to kind of honor that, recognize that they are in that space,
Hmm.
that yeah, it's you're seeing some benefit of, oh, if I don't have to be productive every day, and that's okay, knowing that there's a possibility there, and know that there is resistance when I hear this new perspective, that I don't need to rush myself to get there,
Yeah.
but know that okay, there's something there. And if I want to be that, I want to live a life like that, what can I do differently? Can I experiment?
Hmm.
If no, I can always go back to the original way of productivity I'm doing, and that is still okay. That I think maybe just I like to frame a way that they have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Nice. All right. And then yeah, is there anything else you want to say about this topic at all?
Yeah, I would say really I just like to encourage people to think about like when they are, watching TV or scrolling phone, instead of saying, "Oh my God, I'm so not productive,"
Hmm.
like before they jump into that, self-criticizing mode, or when they can catch themselves, or us as therapists, our fellow colleagues, that we can catch ourselves saying, maybe there's something there. Why do I criticize myself when I have worked hard for so long and I still choose to criticize myself, judge myself,
Hmm.
instead of understanding my need of rest and play and joy? Why do I do that? So be curious about that.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then if there's anything, any one thing, right? Well, I guess you just gave us something, but if there's anything else, right, you wanted to leave the listener to maybe take with them, try out, could be a skill, a thought, anything at all. What would you want to leave the listener for today?
I have tried to rehearse this in my mind for so long. I
Mhm.
feel like every time I thought about it, I have different answers.
Uh-huh. And I'm sure they're all great.
But if on top of my mind in this moment,
Mhm.
a takeaway is, I would say, be honest with ourselves,
Yeah.
like about productivity, about life. Is this something truly aligns with me or no?
Mm.
And if we can, because I believe if we can start being honest,
Hmm.
then we can be open to something that is different. And maybe if I can kind of connect this with a little tool, journaling is a great tool.
Yeah.
Talking to someone who you trust, talking to your therapist about, if I have to be very honest, if I can be very honest, what is the definition of my productivity? Can I create my productivity, or what would the productivity be if I cast the society's voice?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's probably more than one thing. But
No. That's amazing, though. By the way, that's really, I love that, because at the end of the day, we're each kind of a silo, right? And until we bounce it either off a journal or off somebody else who can give us some constructive feedback, we're kind of stuck in with this tunnel vision. And at the end of the day, this could be argued one way or another, but kind of can't answer our own questions, right? I mean, it's just we see things a certain way. We have our own perspectives that we've developed over time. So we have tunnel vision. We have certain colored lens glasses, right? And so I love that, because when I do go back and read stuff I've written down, oh man, I see how much I've grown over time. It's cringy, but it helps, because it's like, damn, I used to think like this. And I'm sure if we wrote it down today and looked at it tomorrow, we might have a similar feeling.
Yeah.
So excellent. I love that. Right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. That was great. How was it for you?
Yeah, this is my very first English podcast, so I am very excited.
Wow. What was the other one you did?
I have other podcasts like in Mandarin, but I stopped doing it like maybe 2-3 years ago because life circumstances. But
okay. What was it about in particular, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it was about just anything. It was about a little bit about psychology, about like movies, TV shows. We talk about humanity. We talk about supernatural stuff, aliens, all types of topic, I would say.
Yeah, just free flowing, huh? All right. Yeah. Did you want to plug that or plug anything else? Did you want to put anything out there?
No, I think, well, I'm just really glad to, be on your podcast and to share this topic with the listeners. And like, I'm really learning a lot. I don't even feel like this is a podcast. I feel like we are just having our regular conversations.
Yeah. And that's what I want. That's kind of wanted it to be. I wanted it to be very conversational and just, free flowing and just not super duper structured, because, that's not how humans should always be talking. Right. So, yeah. If you are struggling with perfectionism or the over need for productivity, Sandra Huang, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. And until next time, I can't wait to do this again.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aaron.